It was just another gray Monday at Westbridge High, the kind that made everything feel a little heavier: books, backpacks, even breathing. Nora walked through the crowded hallway like she always did, head down, earbuds in, avoiding eye contact and trouble. Her backpack, a worn-out purple bag covered in pins and doodles, hung slightly off her shoulder. It wasn't much, but it was hers, until it wasn't. Out of nowhere, she felt a sudden jolt. Her backpack was yanked back, then launched forward by a vicious kick. It skidded across the floor and slammed into a row of lockers with a loud clang, scattering books, pens, and her lunch across the hallway. Laughter exploded behind her. Turning slowly, she already knew who it was: Chase, Leah, and Brent, the self-declared royalty of the junior class. Chase stood grinning like a movie villain, smug and proud. "Oops," he said mockingly, nudging Brent. "Didn't see your trash bag there." Leah giggled like it was comedy gold. Nora's cheeks burned as she crouched down to pick up her belongings. Her favorite notebook, the one she wrote stories in, was ripped. Her sandwich was flattened, oozing mustard across the tiled floor. She could feel eyes on her, some amused, some indifferent, but no one stepped in. Not even the teacher, who briskly walked past, offering only a disapproving glance at the mess, then disappearing around the corner. Nora's fingers trembled as she picked up a cracked pen. Something inside her stirred, not sadness, not fear. It was colder than that. A slow, burning frustration that coiled in her chest. She had been through this too many times: tripping in the cafeteria, whispered insults in gym class, the accidental bumping in the halls. She had learned to take it quietly, to blend into the background. But now, kneeling beside her spilled things and their smug laughter, she realized something had shifted. The tears that usually stung behind her eyes didn't come. Instead, a quiet voice inside her whispered, "You're allowed to be angry." Nora stood slowly, holding her torn notebook in one hand, and stared at Chase for a second longer than usual. He didn't notice. He was too busy laughing. But that look? That was the start of something. Something they weren't ready for. Let me know if you'd like the next chapter in the same style. That night, Nora didn't cry. She sat in her room, surrounded by the wreckage of her day: torn papers, her ruined lunchbox, the jagged edge of a cracked pen, and felt a strange, quiet stillness. She didn't want to talk, didn't want comfort. She just opened her journal, the one with half the pages already filled with her stories, dreams, and silent screams, and she started writing, not fiction this time, but truth. Line after line poured out, every time they laughed, every time they pushed, every time the world looked away. She hadn't realized just how long the list had gotten. Nora stared at her handwriting, her own voice staring back at her from the page, and remembered something her mother once said, late at night during one of their rare heart-to-hearts: "People only step on you when you stay on the floor." That sentence echoed in her chest now, pounding louder than her heartbeat. The next day, she got through school like she always did, quiet, careful, invisible. But when the final bell rang and most of her classmates streamed toward home or practice or nowhere, Nora didn't go home. She walked 2 blocks past the bus stop, then another 3, to a small gym wedged between a hardware store and a laundromat. The lights inside flickered slightly, and the air smelled like sweat and old vinyl, but she walked in anyway. "Can I learn to fight?" she asked the woman at the front desk, who looked up from a clipboard and smiled without a trace of judgment. "Boxing?" she asked. Nora nodded. "Then yes," the woman said, handing her a waiver. "But first we teach you how not to run." That night, Nora learned how to tape her hands. How to hold her stance. How to throw a jab that didn't wobble. She wasn't strong, yet, but something about it felt right. Afterward, she was sore and exhausted, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel small. She felt awake. Over the next 2 weeks, she kept going. School was still the same, Leah's sneers, Brent's shoulder checks, but now, something inside her was different. She was no longer absorbing their cruelty, she was preparing. Quietly. Patiently. Like fire gathering heat before it explodes. And deep down, Nora knew, they wouldn't see her coming. 2 weeks had passed since Nora first stepped into that boxing gym, and though the bruises on her knuckles were still tender, something inside her had hardened into steel. The daily bullying hadn't stopped, Chase and his crew still patrolled the hallways like they owned them, but Nora no longer flinched when they walked by. Instead, she watched, quiet and sharp, like someone studying the patterns of a storm before the strike. That Wednesday morning was gray and humid, the kind of day when everything felt too close. Nora moved through the halls with calm focus, her backpack secured tightly against her back. She sensed them before she saw them, Brent's obnoxious laugh echoing off the lockers, Leah's fake gasp followed by a string of cruel whispers. And then, like clockwork, it happened. A hard kick landed square on the bottom of her backpack, sending it flying forward. This time, it didn't just fall. It burst open mid-air and spilled across the floor, notebooks, pencils, and her water bottle clattering in all directions. More laughter. Still carrying your entire life in that thing? Chase sneered, strolling up behind her like he was delivering a punchline. Nora didn't bend down. She didn't scramble. She stood tall and turned to face him, eyes calm, hands steady. "Pick it up," she said, her voice low but clear. Chase blinked, surprised. "What?" He chuckled, stepping closer, towering over her. "You think you're scary now or something?" That's when she moved, fast, clean, and without a hint of hesitation. One step back to gain space, then a sudden sidekick that landed hard in his stomach. The breath whooshed out of him as he staggered backward, tripping over Brent's foot and slamming into an open locker door. The impact was so loud it echoed down the corridor before the door banged shut behind him like some kind of poetic punctuation. For a second, no one moved. Leah's jaw hung open. Brent looked like he'd seen a ghost. A couple of kids down the hall fumbled with their phones, recording in disbelief. A teacher shouted something from the corner, but Nora didn't wait to hear it. She walked over, picked up her backpack without a word, and slung it over her shoulder like it weighed nothing at all. The hallway had never been so quiet. And Nora? She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just walked away, leaving shock, and Chase, in her wake. The video hit the school group chats before Nora even got home. By the time she walked through the front door, her phone was buzzing non-stop, texts, mentions, reposts. "Did you really kick Chase into a locker?" one read. Another, "You're a legend." Nora ignored them. She didn't do it for fame or payback. She did it because she had finally reached her limit. Still, the fallout came fast. The next morning, she was called to the principal's office. Her parents were already there, looking equal parts anxious and proud. But instead of the punishment she expected, Nora was met with a surprisingly calm tone. "The video made it clear," the principal said, glancing at the screen of his laptop. "You were provoked. What you did was, not appropriate, but it was also understandable. No suspension. No detention. Just a warning, and a strange new respect." That respect rippled through the halls of Westbridge High like a slow-moving wave. Nora wasn't a victim anymore. She wasn't invisible. People made room for her when she walked by. Some nodded silently. Others whispered behind their hands, not in mockery this time, but in awe. Chase returned a day later, quieter, bruised ego more than anything else. He avoided her eyes in the hall, and for the first time, Nora saw fear in his. Not because she was dangerous, but because she had become someone who wouldn't be broken. Still, Nora knew that one act of defiance wasn't a cure-all. The bullying didn't vanish, and high school didn't suddenly turn into a fairy tale. But something had changed in her. She kept going to the boxing gym, not to hurt anyone, but because it reminded her of what she was capable of. She started speaking up more in class, writing again in her newly replaced notebook, walking taller, not because she had something to prove, but because she finally understood her own worth. She even made a few friends, real ones, who had seen the video and wanted to know the girl behind the kick. Nora didn't live in fear anymore. She didn't shrink into corners or hide in silence. The shadows she had spent so long hiding in didn't scare her now, because she had stepped out of them. And once you step into your own light, you never forget how to find it again.